It's no mystery that my history is a trail of bodies and blood. I hold on to hope, can't fix what.
Well, space is at a premium today. So, hello from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Oh dear, oh dear. I am going to plunge in right now with my instructions, which my son Dima has told me I need to speak about today for a very short while. An anecdote about writing Empress Bianca. Well, I came to write Empress Bianca because Freddie Monteverdi's niece was a friend of mine, and he was the first of the two very rich husbands that Lily Safra managed to bump off. She did it with the help of Edmund Safra, who was Freddie's junior partner. Freddie was the richest man in Brazil. And they were having an affair. They thought that he had found out about the affair, and she had overheard him telling his sister Rosita, which of course I got directly from Rosita, on the phone, that he was going to divorce her. I think this was, say, on the Friday, and he was going to go to the lawyers on the Monday, and he never made it. So that's how I came to write Empress Bianca. Oh, an awful lot of it is absolutely as it happened. So, life is full of awful people, greedy people, evil people, and people who will do anything for advancement and wealth. Lily Safra was one of them. Another person who has presented herself very firmly in the firmament as a ruthless individual with no scruples or heart, and who will do anything, is Meghan Markle. But we're going to get to her in a moment, because insofar as I'm concerned, there are one or two very serious things going on in the world at the moment, especially in this country, aside from the world. So I'm not going to touch upon anything for any length of time. I'm certainly not even going to breeze by what's happening in Ukraine or Gaza. I'm going to stick to one or two very pertinent things for the next minute before we plunge in to the living embodiment of what a woman shouldn't be. David Lammy has been lying. He has provided false information to try to justify reducing very serious cases so that they're not heard by juries, but that they're heard by judges. He has alighted upon on the fact that many, according to him, 40 or 60%, I think he said 60%, which is a total fiction, it's 8%, of cases in terms of the ravishment of females, this being YouTube, one has to choose one's language carefully, are abandoned. And he tries to make out that they are abandoned because of various reasons to do with delays, etc., and clogging up in the courts, etc. It's all an absolute lie. It's a total fiction. And if Mr. Lammy thinks I'm defaming him, I welcome him to sue me, because I have the facts and figures to hand, as did he. Why does Mr. Lammy want to abandon most of these trials? Well, he's using the very topical and sympathetic matter of the ravishment of females, but it's not for that. It's that they can punish anybody who they want to through the judicial system, and anybody who they want to let off, they can let off. They're already doing it, incidentally. They're already doing it. Sorry. So there's that has been going on, which is extraordinary, and hopefully it's going to be brought to halt. Something else that's going on at the moment is how they're now trying to make out that Nigel Farage has made a strange sound when he was a boy at Dulwich College, and therefore he's not fit to be Prime Minister, as they then spin around, and if you look at their records are all infinitely worse. And I mean, which person with any brain in their head, in any event, would decide that because somebody did something at 11 or 13, that they should not be fit for public office several decades later, nearly 5 decades later? But of course, they're hoisting themselves on their own petard, because when you look at what they have all said and done, and they're being furthered, their agenda is being furthered by the BBC. And when you look at what the BBC was broadcasting 40, 50 and 30 years ago, it's all even more wildly politically incorrect than anything that Nigel Farage could have come up with. But he has quite rightly batted it away and treated it with the contempt that it deserves, and it has got the lack of attention that it deserves. And what he is aiming to do is, in fact, have a judicial review of this government's desire to ban elections by delaying them, because the 4 of the major mayoral elections that are supposed to be taking place shortly have been postponed for 2 years, because the polls show that Labour will lose all 4 mayoralties and Reform will win them. So, and this is not the first time, incidentally, that this government has done that. Let me tell you, Keir Starmer knows only too well how to manipulate the legal system. He was the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, for years. That's why he was knighted. He is manipulating the legal system, and so Nigel has announced that they are going to have a judicial review. They're taking the matter to court to prevent the delay of the elections. So that's very important. That's far more important than anything Meghan and Harry get up to. Well, except, of course, that Harry and Meghan are also playing into the hands of the anti-monarchists and are willingly doing it too. Then there's also the can of worms that the royal family has unwisely opened up by using the terms of Prince Andrew's purchase of the lease and the terms of the lease of Royal Lodge to shove him out of Royal Lodge. And sure enough, because I warned that they were playing into the hands of their enemies, and that when you have an anti-monarchist government in power, you need to be very careful how you tread, because you can be giving daggers to your enemies to use against you, which is precisely what has happened. Because there's now a hue and cry with the politicians demanding that they inspect the Crown Estate books and see the conditions under which the royal family is housed. And they don't seem to understand that A peppercorn rent when you have paid millions of pounds for a lease is simply a legal device. You don't pay 8 or 10 million pounds or 5 million pounds for a property that on the open market you wouldn't get much more, if as much. You don't then spin around and expect to pay rent. A peppercorn rent is in terms of the Leasehold Act. I mean, these people will use any device to try to wangle in. And in this instance, I blame the, shall we say, ill-advised determination to prevail with Prince Andrew when they really should not have been treating him the way they did in any way, shape, or form from the word go. And now they have fouled their own nest because there are questions being asked about the supposed peppercorn rent on Bagshot Park. Well, Bagshot Park is a lemon of a house. It was built for and first lived in by Queen Victoria's favourite son, Prince Arthur, the Duke of Connaught. And Prince Edward lives there with his wife Sophie. And they are trying to make out that because there is an element of a peppercorn rent, that it should be increased. What they don't realise is that there's also a peppercorn rent on Buckingham Palace. I think it's something like 1 penny or 1 goose per annum, some ridiculous thing. Are they going to decide that the Duke of Marlborough, who was gifted it, should now be paying £10 million per annum for living in his gift just because of the way the gift was given? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe this is going to give them bright ideas. Anyway, let's see what happens, because we're going to plunge in with less important matters, but very contentious and seems to be of great interest publicly. Joanne McIlmoyne says, will you comment concerning Prince Harry's continued connections with the palace, which seem to allow him the foreign access and no repercussions re his speech and behaviour? His recent comments about the US electing a king on Stephen Colbert's show will be allowed to stand. I'm beginning to believe the palace is complicit in his insulation from consequences. No, they're not. They're not. They have played a very, very, in my opinion, canny, but it might work out to be effective, but it might turn out to have been a very ill-advised game where Harry and Meghan are concerned because of the race issues and the fact that Meghan Markle is a pathological liar who has had no compunction about hurling race accusations against everybody to bury her past and pave her way to her future. Harry is actually playing a rather cannier game than people seem to realise, because Harry is hoping that to ingratiate himself with the Democrats and the wokists in the United States in the hope that in the not too distant future, the Trump administration will be replaced by a Democratic government. and that will mean that he can do what he wants. And somebody pointed out to me, a very sophisticated friend of mine, that she wouldn't be surprised if Harry was hoping that Trump would actually end up deporting him so that he could then play the victim. And of course, that would get him and Meghan back to the United Kingdom. And that would put the royal family in an invidious position. I don't think he and Meghan are necessarily quite that bright. I know she's that conniving, but I don't know that they're that bright. But no, the royal family simply are handling it in which so far has proven to be effective. Give them enough rope to hang themselves and they will. And they are. They are. Because all these stunts simply make them more and more unpopular with everybody, except their dyed-in-the-wool sort of very few supporters who keep on every time they pull a stunt, become fewer and fewer. Aussie in UK says, there was absolutely no reason for Markle to announce she had reached out to Mr. Markle. Everything she does is so contrived, but she's lied so much in the past that only a fool would take her word that she had reached out to her father. I don't think she gives a fat rat's behind about Thomas. She doesn't. But I do. And if Thomas Markle Sr. gets the connection that he yearns for, I am not going to deprive him of the pleasure and the release and the relief that would bring him. I've said it time and again. I went through a similar situation with my mother and grandmother, and I know how my grandmother suffered because of my mother. And my grandmother stayed alive beyond the expectations of the doctors, just to wait to see my mother, and then she died. If it brings Thomas Markle relief, I say good. Having said that, it will open up a whole new can of worms, because, of course, is Meghan then going to reconcile with her sister and brother? Is she going to stop the denigration of them, which started with her? People seem to think that Samantha and Thomas Jr. are the ones who started the powwow. It's not. Meghan started it. Meghan tried to get their father to cut them off and threatened to not allow her father to come to the wedding if he didn't cut them off. Meghan used to be on perfectly cordial terms with both of them. She and Samantha used to have a very cordial relationship. And the last time Samantha phoned Meghan was to congratulate her when she heard that she was going out with Harry. Meghan brushed her off, has never been in touch with her since, except to tell lies about her and tried to say that she was on a police list of, I forget what it's called now, obsessed people, but it's not called that, something else, when no such list exists. So that will open up a whole new can of worms if it comes off. And when that happens, if it happens, it's going to be a very delicate situation. Will it happen? I'm not a fortune teller and I'm not going to make any predictions. But I would say that Meghan has finally awoken to the fact that what I said in 2020 is true. Her relationship with her father would prove to be her downfall. And she has now stated that she sent him an email. So she's been more specific, that because the last time it was that they'd reached out. Now it's that she sent him an email. Well, that in itself tells me, I don't know what it tells you, but that in itself tells me that that was just a ploy to be able to say that she had reached out, when she damn well knew that anybody who just had his leg amputated was not going to be on the computer. And also, there are no computers for patients in the ICU. I mean, I was recently in the ICU. The idea that when you are drugged out of your mind and in pain and you're being monitored with absolutely everything and plugged in, etc., that you are then going to be able to look at your emails. I mean, and she has his phone number. She rarely thinks everybody is as stupid as she is. But it doesn't alter the fact that it shows that she's on to the danger. Well, the mere fact that she is pulling these, what in Jamaica they call crowd moves, shows that she is fully aware of the danger that she's in, and that she's fully aware that if she doesn't do something that to answer the public outcry, that she is actually in bigger trouble than she ever thought she would be in. Let's put it like that. Canuck says, Thomas Markle Jr. has stated a male called the hospital and hung up when they asked questions. He thinks it was Carl Larsen, Meghan's paparazzi colleague. Meghan has two great paparazzi colleagues. One paparazzo colleague is Carl Larsen, the other is Jeff Rayner. I've never had the pleasure, or maybe it's the experience, or maybe it's the displeasure of running across Jeff Rayner. If I have, I'm not aware of it. But I've certainly had the displeasure of having encountered Carl Larsen. Carl Larsen is like many yellow journalists, busy there thrashing around and scratching around, trying to get news. Now, that's his chosen career. If he wishes to do it, it's a free world. He's allowed to do it. And I'm delighted that if he tried to do it, that he was thwarted. But that's just a suspicion on Thomas Jr.'s part. But Carl Larsen does thrash around. So does Jeff Rayner, usually with Meghan's cooperation. June Andrews says, I wonder if Meredith Maines, Meghan's PR head, is lying for her and risking her own reputation, or readying to jump the sinking, stinking ship. Well, if she's clever, she's going to realize that you can't pass a rat off as a cat. Doesn't work. Who is lying is beside the point. But whoever said to Meghan, you have got to stop telling everybody that your father is inventing all of his illnesses just to spoil your fun and ruin your party, was giving her good advice. Maybe it was Meredith Mains. I don't know. And quite frankly, I wouldn't waste my time finding out. But she certainly took their advice, because having threatened the Times, they then backtracked and within a matter of minutes, a total vote farce, and declared that Meghan had reached out when they had previously said she hadn't. So, to wrap this up, in my opinion, whoever gave her the advice, and clearly somebody did, and clearly she finally listened to whoever it was who gave her the advice. And if it was Meredith Mains, good on Meredith Mains. That she should stop with the lies and the ridiculous and unsustainable version of events she has been purveying for the last several years. That her father's illnesses are all fabrications to spoil her fun and ruin her reputation, when she does that very well on her own, with no effort from anybody. And that his heart attack was faked to prevent him from coming to the wedding that he wanted to be at. And that she went to such lengths to make sure that she put such pressure on him that he would collapse and wouldn't come to the wedding. Then that he had a stroke, which, notwithstanding the fact that the physical signs are there, she has systematically denied he's ever had. And then the amputation, which she was briefing, her people were briefing the press, that her father was a liar who'd invented all of this, and she believed this was his latest invention. So whoever said to her, this is unsustainable, you need to sort of connect to reality and at least pretend that it's happening and that you care. So, if that's Meredith Mains, I think she should keep Meredith Mains on. Whether Meredith Mains, of course, will want to continue to be on board a ship that is full of feces is something else again. Gabby Mayer says, Brand Sussex is toast. I couldn't agree more. Have you seen the comments on all of the sites, in all of the newspapers? 99% of the people have seen through Meghan Markle. There's nothing she or her PR people and her bots, who are coming out in force at the moment, trying to spin things around. They can't spin anymore. They spun once too often, and everything they spin turns out to be a lie, and we all see her for what she is, and them for what they are. Miss Claire Mack says, did not the late Queen and Prince Charles, now King, try and persuade Meghan to try to at least lay to rest her family turmoil in some way? She steadfastly refused. Why? Because she did not want a rapprochement with her father. She wanted to be able to maintain the lies and the fiction that she even had the temerity to purvey publicly in a speech in Fiji, where she completely erased her father's contribution. And she spun around and brazenly lied about pretty much how she'd been working from the age of 6 months. Well, she's certainly been working something for a while, but I don't think it was at 6 months. Let's put it that way. And she led the Queen and Prince Charles to believe that she was writing him a letter to reconcile, but it came out in the lawsuit with associated newspapers that she had written it with the specific intention of destroying the possibility of any reconciliation with her father. The woman is a conniving, scheming piece of work. And she's paying the price because people now see through her. How is she going to ever be able to convince people that she is a sweet humanitarian who loves people and cares about people and is so wonderful when everybody knows what a monster she is? Sharon makes an interesting observation. The only interest Markle has in her father's medical crisis is how can she use his suffering for her own PR gain. This is classic narcissistic vulture behavior. I couldn't agree more. She's trying to spin things so that she will be able to preserve herself. And believe me, people like that are very resourceful. She's gonna pull one or two nice little hats out of the bag. Let's depend on it. She is going to come up with some plausibility that is going to convince at least 2% of the dotes who still believe in her. So, and Kat says, Lady C, how many millions have the Sussexes spent with PR and communications people? Doesn't she know she is the most disrespected and despised hypocrite on several continents, on all continents? Does she know it? She doesn't concern herself with facts. She never has. She concerns herself with domination. She concerns herself with laying her imprimatur. And when it doesn't work, it's because people are stupid. It's because people are nasty. It's because people are racist. It's because people hate her, because they're jealous of her. Blah, blah, blah. She spent millions. But I said it before in my books as well. Meghan has always invested in her PR because any money she made on suits, she promptly plowed back into PR to make herself more famous and to get herself more established. And it worked because she went from a minor actress to a major royal player. But of course, because she's a two-bit hustler, a card shark in a big boy's world, she didn't understand that her grifts were no longer going to work and that she would expose herself, which is precisely what she has done. Let's hope this comes to an end soon. It's exhausting. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this is of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I know what ground you'd like me to cover with you. Okay, thank you so much. Take good care. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and hype? Thank you.